Welcome back, everybody. We are going to do a restorative practice today. And so if you would gather together some of your pillows and blankets, anything that is block-like, like books and whatnot that you want to bring in to use as props, get creative. And you can use unlimited amounts of pillows in this practice because this is meant to be quite comfortable. I'm also going to be practicing on Nicole Clark's restorative mat. And I was showing you guys this the last time. We have those in the studio. They are exquisite. Irish wool, and then on the back there's these little nubbies. And then on one end there are elastics, so you can roll it up and it holds together and you can store it away. They're super light, but they're so comfortable to practice on. So if you're interested in purchasing one, you can contact me and I can meet you down at the studio. It might be a nice thing to treat yourself with, getting comfortable and having this practice that allows us to calm our central nervous system in this time that can be pretty tense. So I'm going to ask you to find your space there. And today I'm going to be reading. So you might turn on music in the background, you might not. But today we're going to be reading from Braiding Sweetgrass. And this was one of our book club books. And this has become a beloved book to me. It's a series of essays written by Robin Kimmerer. And she is a botanist. And she's also a Native American. And so she's speaking to the science, the Western science, as well as Native American heritage and our connection to Earth. And the chapter I'm going to be reading from is called The Honorable Harvest. And I think that these are wonderful points to reflect upon in this space that we have. We're becoming quiet and perhaps tuning into what's important, perhaps being able to tune in a little more to Earth. For me, this experience has been very much about that. Spending a lot of time outside my garden, planting food, thinking about where my food sources come from, thinking about this relationship that I have with Earth, Mama Gaia, Pachamama, where growing my food and then consuming my own food, this direct relationship that is very important, and we don't necessarily have that anymore. And so this has been a really wonderful time for me to reflect on these things, and it's become a meditation for me. So I invite you to begin in a seat for meditation. Bring yourself up onto some block or perhaps on top of a blanket, lifting your sits bones and closing your eyes or bringing your gaze just ahead of you. Begin to bear witness to your breath. It's noticing how shallow, how deep it feels obstructed. Allowing yourself to feel whatever's coming up, whatever's there, without intellectualizing or compartmentalizing. Allowing it to fully be felt. And in this practice, give yourself permission to truly surrender. You don't have to hold things up, hold things in place. Rather, this is time for you to be held. This is time for you to be soothed. This time is necessary. Gently blink your eyes open and make your way onto your mat and come into a tabletop position. And we're going to begin just moving our spine around a little bit, taking some cat-cows, inhaling as you look up, and then exhaling. Inhaling, exhaling. Inhaling, exhaling. And then you might begin to move into circles, move side to side, shifting. And then you're going to make your way onto your mat. We're going to begin just with a little bit of height underneath your hips. Make this a little bit bigger if you feel inclined to doing so, but it's not necessary. And you're going to bring that right underneath your hips, and then you're going to bring your head to the tops of your hands. And you can just bring one hand on top of the other. And another option you might take a blanket and roll it up so that it comes underneath your ankles. And then when you lay down, your knees can bend a little bit. And then make your way to stillness. Once you feel as though you can absolutely rest in the position. And you might scan through your body and body part by body part. Give yourself permission to surrender. Sometimes we don't even notice when we're clenching our jaw or lifting our shoulders up by our ears. So diligently scanning throughout your body. Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Kimmerer. This is from the chapter, The Honorable Harvest. The crows see me coming across the field, a woman with a basket, and argue my provenance loudly among themselves. The soil is hard under my bare feet, bare except for the scattering of plow-scraped rocks and a few of last year's corn stalks, their remnant prop roots squatting like bleached-out spider legs. Years of herbicides and continuous corn have left the field sterile. Even in rain-soaked April, not a blade of green shows its face. By August, it will once again be a monoculture of corn plants in straight rows of indentured servitude. But for now, it's my cross-country route to the woods. My entourage of crows leaves me at the stone wall, a loose wood row of glacial cobbles raked from the field to mark its boundary. On the other side, the ground is soft underfoot and deep in centuries of leaf mold. The forest floor flocked with tiny pink spring beauties and clumps of yellow violets. The humus stirs with trout lilies and trillium poised to rise through the winter brown mat of leaves. A wood thrush hangs a silvery trill on the still bare branches of the maples. The dense patches of leeks are among the first to appear in the spring. Their green so vivid that they signal like a neon sign, "Pick me." I resist the urge to answer their call immediately and instead address the plants the way I've been taught, introducing myself in case they've forgotten, even though we've been meeting like this for years. I explain why I've come and ask their permission to harvest, inquiring politely if they would be willing to share. And begin to press into your hands and then push yourself all the way back. Lengthen out into a child's pose. Stretch your arms out. Maybe shift from side to side. And then you're going to make your way up. And we'll come onto our side. You might make yourself some sort of pillow at the top. And then you're going to bring some kind of pillow out in front so that you can bring your knee up. And you're going to stick one arm through. And then you're also going to bring something in front of your heart so that your arm can come around and your shoulder isn't slumping forward. There's some structure here at the front of your body. So basically, your leg is supported over and your hip is supported. Your shoulder is supported. And you have enough room here for your left arm, your bottom arm. So it's not crunched up and your head's a little bit elevated. And you're going to adjust according to your body, making it absolutely delicious. Give yourself a moment to scan through your body again to make sure that you give yourself full permission to relax. Eating leeks is a spring tonic that blurs the line between food and medicine. It wakens the body from its winter lassitude and quickens the blood. But I have another need too that only greens from this particular wood can satisfy. Both of my daughters will be home for the weekend from the far places where they live. I ask these leeks to renew the bonds between this ground and my children so that they will always carry the substance of home in the mineral of their bones. Some of the leaves are already expanded, stretching towards the sun, while others are still rolled into a spear, thrusting up through the duff. I dig my trowel in around the edge of the clump, but they're deeply rooted and tightly packed, resisting my efforts. It's just a small trowel and it hurts my winter softened hand, but at least I pry out a clump and shake away the dirt. I expected a cluster of fat white bulbs, but in their place I find ragged papery sheaths where bulbs would be, withered and flaccid. They look as if all the juice has already been sucked out of them, which it was. If you ask permission, you have to listen to the answer. I tuck them back into the soil and go home. Although the stone wall, the elderberries have broken bud, and their embryonic leaves reach out like gloved purple hands. On a day like this, when the fiddleheads are unfurling and the air is petal soft, I am awash in longing. I know that thou not covet thy neighbor's chloroplasts is good advice, and I must confess in full-blown chlorophyll envy. Sometimes I wish I could photosynthesize so that just by being, just by shimmering at the meadow's edge or floating lazily on a pond, I could be doing the work of the world while standing silent in the sun. The shadowy hemlocks and the waving grasses are spinning out sugar molecules and passing them on to hungry mouths and mandibles, all the while listening to the warblers and watching the light dance on the water. It would be so satisfying to provide for a well-being of others, like being a mother again, like being needed. Shade, medicine, berries, roots, there would be no end. As a plant, I could make the campfire, hold the nest, heal the wound, fill the brimming pot. But this generosity is beyond my realm, and I am here, mere heterotroph, a feeder of the carbon transmuted by others. In order to live, I must consume. That's the way the world works. The exchange of life for life, the endless cycling between my body and the body of the world. Forced to choose, I must admit I actually like the heterotroph role. Besides, if I could photosynthesize, I couldn't eat leeks. Very slowly, you're going to make your way onto your opposite side. Adjusting your props as needed. And finally asking yourself if you're perfectly comfortable. So instead, I live vicariously through the photosynthesis of others. I am not the vibrant leaves on the forest floor. I am the woman with a basket, and how I fill it is a question that matters. If we are fully awake, a moral question arises as we extinguish the other lives around us on behalf of our own. Whether we are digging wild leeks or going to the mall, how do we consume in a way that does justice to the lives that we take? In our oldest stories, we were reminded that this was a question of profound concern for our ancestors. When we rely deeply on other lives, there is an urgency to protect them. Our ancestors, who had so few material possessions, devoted a great deal of attention to this question. While we who are drowning in possessions scarcely give it a thought. The cultural landscape may have changed, but the conundrum has not. The need to resolve the inescapable tension between honoring life around us and taking it in order to live is part of being a human. A few weeks later, I take up my basket and again cross the field, still bare while the earth on the other side of a wall is drifted in snowy white trillium blossoms, like a late season snowfall. I must look like a ballet dancer tiptoeing and spinning between clumps of delicate Dutchman's breeches. Mysterious blue shoots of cohosh, patches of bloodroot, and the green shoots of jack in the pulpit, and mayapple surging up through the leaves. I greet them one by one and feel as if they're glad to see me too. We are told to take only that which is given. And when I was here last, the leeks had nothing to give. Bulbs hold energy saved up for the next generation like money in the bank. Last fall, the bulbs were sleek and fat, but in the first days of spring, that savings account gets depleted as the roots send their stored energy into the emerging leaves to fuel the journey from soil to sunshine. In their first few days, the leaves are consumers, taking from root, shriveling it up, and giving nothing back. But as they unfurl, they become a powerful solar array that will recharge the energy of the roots, playing out the reciprocity between consuming and producing in a few short weeks. Begin to push into the floor again. And you're going to push yourself all the way up. And we're going to come into a supported child's pose. So this might be a bunch of pillows built up, maybe with something at the end where you can lay down. I also like to take something on top of my calves and come here. And another nice addition might be to take a blanket with a little bit of weight to it and bring it to your lower back. And this has a very grounding, therapeutic effect to have a little bit of weight there. And it might also be nice to have around your shoulders. And once again, you're going to take a moment to scan your body, giving yourself permission to fully relax and surrender. The leeks today are twice the size they were on my first visit, and the scent of the onions is strong where a deer has bruised the leaves. I pass by my first clump and kneel by the second. Once again, I quietly ask permission. Asking permission shows respect for the personhood of the plant, but it is also an assessment of the well-being of the population. Thus, I must use both sides of my brain to listen to the answer. The analytic left reads the empirical signs to judge whether the population is large and healthy enough to sustain a harvest, whether it has enough to share. The intuitive right hemisphere is reading something else, a sense of generosity and open-handed radiance that says, "Take me," or sometimes a light, tight-lipped recalculance that makes me put my trowel away. I can't explain it, but it is a kind of knowing that for me is just as compelling as a no trespassing sign. This time when I push my trowel deep, I come up with a thick cluster of gleaming white bulbs, plump, slippery, and aromatic. I hear yes. So I make a gift from the old tobacco pouch in my pocket and begin to dig. Leeks are clonal plants that multiply by division, spreading the patch wider and wider. As a result, they tend to become crowded in the center of a patch, so I try to harvest there. In this way, my taking can help the growth of the remaining plants by thinning them out. From camas bulbs to sweetgrass, blueberries to basket willow, our ancestors found ways to harvest that bring long-term benefit to plants and people. While a sharp shovel would make digging more efficient, the truth is that it makes the work too fast. If I could get all the leeks I needed in 5 minutes, I'd lose that time on my knees watching the ginger poke up and listening to the oriole that has just returned home. This is truly a choice for slow food. Besides, that simple shift in technology would also make it easy to slice through neighboring plants and take too much. Woods throughout the country are losing their leeks to harvesters who love them to extinction. The difficulty of digging is an important constraint. Not everything should be convenient. The traditional ecological knowledge of indigenous harvesters is rich in prescriptions for sustainability. They are found in native science and philosophy, in life ways and practices, but most of all in stories, the ones that are told to help restore balance, to locate ourselves once again in the circle. An elder, Basil Johnson, tells of the time our teacher, Nanabozo, was fishing in a lake for supper, as he often did with his hook and line. Heron came striding along through the reeds on his long bent legs, his beak like a spear. Heron is a good fisherman and a sharing friend, so he told Nanabozo about a new way to fish that would make his life much easier. Heron cautioned him to be careful not to take too many fish, but Nanabozo was already thinking of a feast. He went out early the next day and soon had a whole basket of fish, so heavy he could barely carry it, and far more than he could eat. So he cleaned all those fish and set them out to dry on the racks outside his lodge. The next day, with his belly still full, he went back to the lake and again did what Heron had showed him. Ah, he thought as he carried home the fish, I will have plenty to eat this winter. Day after day he stuffed himself, and the lake grew empty. His drying racks grew full, sending out a delicious smell into the forest where Fox was licking his lips. Again he went out to the lake so proud of himself, but the day his nets came up empty, the heron looked down on him and flew over the lake with a critical eye. When Nanabozo got home to his lodge, he learned a key rule. Never take more than what you need. The racks of fish were toppled in the dirt and every bite was gone. Cautionary stories of the consequences of taking too much are ubiquitous in native cultures, but it's hard to recall a single one in English. Perhaps this helps to explain why we seem to be caught in a trap of overconsumption, which is destructive to ourselves and to those who we consume. Begin to push yourself up. And we're going to make our way into our twist. We're going to bring a hip to the bottom of the bolster. And you can bring something between your knees. And then you're going to frame your bolster or multiple pillows, however you've built up some kind of support here. And then you're going to lower down here. And once again, you're going to give yourself permission, body part by body part, to surrender, to be held, to be supported. Collectively, the indigenous canon of principles and practices that govern the exchange of life for life is known as the Honorable Harvest. They are rules of sorts that govern our taking, shape our relationships with the natural world, and rein in our tendency to consume, that the world might be as rich for the seventh generation as it is for our own. The details are highly specific to different cultures and ecosystems, but the fundamental principles are nearly universal among the people who live close to the land. I am a student of this way of thinking, not a scholar. As a human being who cannot photosynthesize, I must struggle to participate in the honorable harvest. So I lean in close to watch and listen to those who are far wiser than I am. What I share here in the same way they share with me are seeds gleaned from the fields of their collective wisdom, the barest surface, the moss on the mountain of their knowledge. I feel grateful for their teaching and responsible for passing them on the best I can. My friend is a town clerk in a small Adirondack village. In the summer and fall, there is a line outside her door for fishing and hunting licenses. With every laminated card, she hands out the harvesting regulations, pocket-sized booklets on thin newsprints, printed in black and white, except for glossy inserts with photos of actual prey, just in case people don't know what they're shooting at. It happens. Every year, there is a story about a triumphal deer hunters being stopped on the highway with a Jersey calf tied to their bumper. A friend of mine once worked at a hunting check station during partridge season. A guy drove up in a big white Oldsmobile and proudly opened his trunk for inspection of the take. The birds were all neatly laid out on a canvas sheet, lined up, beak to beak with plumage scarcely ruffled, a whole brace of yellow shafted flickers. Traditional people who feed their families from the land have harvest guidelines too. Detailed protocols designed to maintain the health and vigor of wildlife species. Like the state regulations, they are based on sophisticated ecological knowledge and long-term monitoring of populations. They share the common goal of protecting what hunting managers call the resource, both for its own sake and to safeguard the sustainable supply for future generations. Make your way onto your opposite side, moving slowly. No rushing, getting yourself just right. Early colonists on Turtle Island were stunned by the plenitude they found here, attributing to the richness to the bounty of nature. Settlers in the Great Lakes wrote in their journals about the extraordinary abundance of wild rice harvested by native peoples. In just a few days, they could fill their canoes with enough rice to last all year. But the settlers were puzzled by the fact that, as one of them wrote, the savages stopped gathering long before all the rice was harvested. She observed that the rice harvest starts with a ceremony of thanksgiving and prayers for good weather for the next 4 days. They will harvest dawn till dusk for the prescribed 4 days and then stop, often leaving much rice to stand unreaped. This rice, they say, is not for them but for the thunders. Nothing will compel them to continue, therefore much goes to waste. The settlers took this as a certain evidence of laziness and lack of industry on the part of the heathens. They did not understand how indigenous land care practices might contribute to the wealth that they encountered. I once met an engineering student visiting from Europe who told me excitedly about going ricing in Minnesota with his friend's family. His friend was a member of a tribe. He was eager to experience a bit of Native American culture. They were on the lake by dawn, and all day long they poled through the rice beds, knocking the ripe seed into the canoe. It didn't take long to collect quite a bit, he reported. But it's not very efficient. At least half of the rice just falls in the water, and they didn't seem to care. It's wasted. As a gesture of thanks to his host, a traditional ricing family, he offered to design a grain capture system that could be attached to the gunwales of the canoe. He sketched it out for them, showing how his technique could get 85% more rice. His hosts listened respectfully, then said, "Yes, we could get more that way, but it's got to seed itself for another year. And what we leave behind is not wasted." You know, we're not the only ones who think like rice. Do you think the ducks would stop here if we took it all? Our teachings tell us never to take more than half. When my basket holds enough leeks for dinner, I head home. Walking back through the flowers, I see a whole patch of snake roots spreading its glistening leaves, which reminds me of a story told by an herbalist I know. She taught me one of the cardinal rules of gathering plants. Never take the first plant you find, as it might be the last. And you want the first one to speak well of you to the others of her kind. That's not too hard to do when you come upon a whole stream bank of coltsfoot, when there's a third and a fourth right behind the first, but it's harder when the plants are few and the desire is great. Once I dreamed of a snake root and that I should bring it with me on a journey the next day. There was a need, but I didn't know what it was. But it was still too early to harvest. The leaves wouldn't be up for another week or so. There was a chance it might be up early somewhere, maybe in a sunny spot. So I went to look in the usual place I pick those medicines, the herbalist recalled for me. The bloodroot was out, and the spring beauties too. She greeted them as she walked past, but saw none of the plants she sought. She stepped more slowly, opening her awareness, making her whole self into a halo of peripheral vision. Nestled at the base of the maple on the southeast side, the snake root made itself visible, a glossy mass of dark green leaves. She knelt, smiling, and spoke quietly. She thought of her upcoming journey, the empty bag in her pocket, and then slowly rose to her feet. Though her knees were stiff with age, she walked away, refraining from taking the first one. Very gently begin to press yourself up. And we'll make our way towards our backs. And you can set something up here so you have some height to come underneath your sacrum. And then perhaps a little support up here where you would take a smaller pillow. And also keep something else handy, such as a block blanket, maybe a good firm pillow in addition. And you're gonna make your way onto the big bolster. And then you're gonna lie all the way down. And you might bring your legs all the way up, but you also might bend your knees, taking your feet wide, and then bring something between your knees. And then you're going to decide what you want to do with your arms. Maybe overhead, maybe by the sides. Paying attention to what feels right and what feels exceptional. She wandered through the woods, admiring the trillium just poking their heads up, and the leeks. But there was no more snake root. I just figured I'd have to go without. I was halfway home when I found I'd lost my little shovel, the one I always use for digging medicine. So I had to go back. Well, I found it all right. It's got a red handle, so it's easy to find. And you know, it had fallen from my pocket right in a patch of root. So I talked to that plant, addressed it, just like you would a person whose help you needed, and it gave me a bit of itself. When I got where I was going, sure enough, there was a woman there who needed that snake root medicine, and I could pass it on as a gift. The plant reminded me that if we harvest with respect, the plants will help us. The guidelines for the honorable harvest are not written down or even consistently spoken of as a whole. They are reinforced in small acts of daily life. But if you were to listen to them, they might look something like this. Know the ways of the one who take care of you so that you may take care of them. Introduce yourself. Be accountable as the one who comes asking for life. Ask permission before taking. Abide by the answer. Never take the first. Never take the last. Take only what you need. Take only that which is given. Never take more than half. Leave some for others. Harvest in a way that minimizes harm. Use it respectfully. Never waste what you have taken. Share. Give thanks for what you have been given. Give a gift in reciprocity for what you have taken. Sustain the ones who sustain you, and the earth will last forever. The state guidelines on hunting and gathering are based exclusively in the biophysical realm, while the rules of the Honorable Harvest are based on accountability to both the physical and the metaphysical worlds. The taking of another life to support your own is far more significant when you recognize the beings who are harvested as persons, non-human persons vested with awareness, intelligence, spirit, and whose families waiting for them at home. Killing a who demands something different than killing an it. When you regard those non-human persons as kinfolk, another set of harvesting regulations extends beyond bag limits and legal seasons. Gently, you're going to roll off to one side or the other, moving very slowly. And then we're going to make our way into a final shape. This can be a Shavasana. This can be Shavasana as in corpse pose, lying across the ground. It can be legs at the wall. And I always do this one because this is my favorite, where I just take the big bolster and have it inclined in the back. And you might have your legs out straight. You might come into Supta Baddha Konasana with some support underneath your knees. And it can also look like this when you take a blanket and you roll it up. You bring it on top of your feet and then tuck it around and it catches underneath your calves. And then you come back and you can open up your arms. Some of us need a little bit of a support underneath our head still, but generally this is a pretty delicious pose. So make your way there. Again, giving yourself permission to thoroughly relax, to surrender, to be held. The state regulations are, by and large, lists of illegal practices. It is unlawful to keep a rainbow trout whose length from snout to posterior fin does not exceed 12 inches. The consequences for breaking the law are clearly stipulated and involve a financial transaction after a visit with your friendly conservation officer. Unlike the other states, the Honorable Harvest is not an enforced legal policy, but it is an agreement nonetheless among people, and most especially between consumers and providers. The providers have the upper hand. The deer, the sturgeon, the berries, and the leek say, if you follow these rules, we will continue to give our lives so that you may live. Imagination is one of our most powerful tools. What we imagine, we can become. I like to imagine what it would be like if the Honorable Harvest were the law of the land today, as it was in our past. Imagine if a developer eyeing open land for a shopping mall had to ask the goldenrod, the meadowlarks, and the monarch butterflies for permission to take their homeland. What if he had to abide by the answer? Why not? I like to imagine a laminated card like the one my friend, the town clerk, hands out with a hunting and fishing license embossed with the rules of the Honorable Harvest. Everyone would be subject to the same laws, since they are, after all, the dictates of the real government, the democracy of species, the law of Mother Nature. When I ask my elders about the ways our people lived in order to keep the world whole and healthy, I hear the mandate to take only what you need. But we people Descendants of Nanabozo struggle as he did with self-restraint. The dictum to only take what you need leaves a lot of room for interpretation when our needs get so tangled with our wants. This gray area yields then to a rule more primal than need. An old teaching nearly forgotten, now in the din of industry and technology. Deeply rooted in the cultures of gratitude, this ancient rule is not just to take what you need, but to take only that which is given. At the level of human interaction, we already do this. It's what we teach our kids. If you're visiting your sweet grandma and she offers you homemade cookies on her favorite china plate, you know what to do. You accept them with many thank yous and cherish the relationship reinforced with cinnamon and sugar. You gratefully take what has been given. But you wouldn't dream of breaking into her pantry and taking all of the cookies without invitation, grabbing her china plate for good measure. That would be at a minimum a breach of good manners, a betrayal of a loving relationship. What's more, your grandma would be heartbroken and not inclined to bake more cookies for you anytime soon. As a culture, though, we seem unable to extend these good manners to the natural world. The dishonorable harvest has become a way of life. We may take what doesn't belong to us and destroy it beyond repair. Onondaga Lake, the Alberta tar sands, the rainforests of Malaysia, the list is endless. They are gifts from our sweet grandmother Earth, which we take without asking. How can we find honorable harvest again? If we're picking berries or gathering nuts, taking only what is given makes a lot of sense. They offer themselves, and by taking them, we fulfill our reciprocal responsibility. After all, the plants have made these fruits with the express purpose of our taking them to disperse and plant. By our use of their gifts, both species prosper and life is magnified. But what about something taken without a clear avenue for mutual benefit when someone is going to lose? How can we distinguish between that which is given by the earth and that which is not? When does taking become outright theft? I think of my elders, and they would counsel that there is no one path, that each of us must find our own way. In my wandering with this question, I found dead ends and clear openings. Discerning all that it might mean is like bushwhacking through dense undergrowth. Sometimes I get faint glimpses of a deer trail. I've heard it said that sometimes, in return for the gifts of the earth, gratitude is enough. It is our uniquely human gift to express thanks, because we have the awareness and the collective memory to remember that the world could be otherwise, less generous than it is. But I think we are called to go beyond the cultures of gratitude, to once again become cultures of reciprocity. And begin to wiggle your toes and wiggle your fingers. Draw your knees up into your chest, and as you squeeze your knees in, give thanks to this body that you get to be in. Squeeze your knees in again, giving thanks to this life that you get to live. And in the spirit of this reading, squeeze your knees in a third time, giving thanks to this sweet planet that we're on. Gently roll onto one side or the other. Very slowly making your way up into a seated position. Your eyes can be open or closed. Bring your hands to heart center. Take a great big inhale through your nose, open your mouth and let it go. Bring your thumbs up to your third eye and blink your eyes open. The divine in me acknowledges and bows to the divine within you. Namaste. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that reading. It's a fabulous book if you want to order it. I think she also has it on Audible. That's another way to listen to it. It's really beautiful. And I look forward to seeing you guys again soon. Keep reaching out. If you need anything, if you have any suggestions, if there's more of something you'd like to see, just let us know. And I posted a nice article yesterday on grieving, and it's a pretty interesting article if you want to read through it. It's nice to those of us who are experiencing a lot of emotion right now, which is a lot of us, I think. It's something to think about the stages of grieving, and you might identify with that. And it's always nice to put a name to something so that we can let it come up and feel it through and let it work its way through us. But thinking of all of you, especially those of you over in the hospital, you're on my mind a lot. And I love you guys so much. Please take care. All right.